Good Friday afternoon. Thanks for joining us on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Chris Harabsky. Happening right now, President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin are meeting face to face in Alaska. This is their first in-person meeting of Trump's second term. President says his goal with this meeting is to secure a ceasefire in Ukraine, where Russia invaded 3 years ago. Trump says he does not plan to talk about territory divisions in Ukraine, something Putin says his country is not willing to give up. Here's President Trump speaking on the way to Alaska.
What will make a success of this summit today?
I can't tell you that. I don't know. There's nothing set in stone. I want certain things. I want to see a ceasefire. This is not to do with Europe. Europe's not telling me what to do. But they're going to be involved in the process, obviously, as will Zelensky. But I want to see a ceasefire rapidly. I don't know if it's going to be today, but I'm not going to be happy if it's not today.
Ukrainians, meantime, protesting in their nation's capital, saying their leadership deserves a seat at the negotiation table, especially because it's their country's future on the line. Trump has previously said that if today's meeting goes well, there will be another involving Ukrainian leadership. NBC's Richard Engel is in Ukraine with how people on the ground there are feeling about today's meeting.
I'm now in the eastern Ukrainian city of Kramatorsk, and the government has just issued an order for families with children to evacuate towns and villages around this city because of an ongoing Russian offensive. This apartment building was destroyed by a Russian attack just 2 weeks ago, and several Ukrainian civilians were killed. And Russia is carrying out attacks just like this one every single day across Ukraine. And today, Ukrainians are particularly worried that President Trump and Vladimir Putin are meeting in Alaska, potentially making big decisions about the future of this country without Ukrainians in the room. And they worry that Vladimir Putin will not be held accountable for all of the damage and all of the deaths that Russia continues to inflict on this country. And Ukrainian officials and soldiers that I've spoken to all have one piece of advice for President Trump today: don't take Vladimir Putin at his word. Richard Engel, NBC News, Kramatorsk, Ukraine.
Happening right now, investigators are trying to figure out what sparked a fire at a St. Paul senior apartment complex overnight. It happened on Como Boulevard, just southeast of Lake Como. The fire, according to officials, was contained to a first-floor apartment. That apartment is also where fire crews found a body. It is not clear if that person died during the fire or before. St. Paul Fire says they'll update us as soon as they know more. Investigators are closer to answers today in a nearly 60-year-old mystery after finding a body and a car in the Mississippi River in Sartell. The Stearns County Sheriff says the body was found inside a car at the bottom of the river, and the VIN number shows the car belonged to a local man named Roy Ben, who went missing in 1967. The Stearns County dive team pulled the vehicle out of the water after getting a tip from a fisherman who saw something strange on his fish finder.
Divers described to me that the vehicle was at least half full of sediment inside the vehicle. So they couldn't see into the vehicle, see if there was anything that would show that it was occupied or unoccupied. It was definitely going to be something where we're going to have to get it out of the river.
According to records at the Stearns County History Museum, Ben was a small business owner who was known to carry large amounts of cash. He was last seen at a restaurant a few miles from where that car was found in the river. A news article from the 60s shows Ben's brother assumed foul play was involved, but officials say they're still investigating to determine a cause of death. For the first time, we're hearing from a Good Samaritan who rushed to rescue victims of a multi-vehicle crash that turned deadly on Tuesday night. This happened along I-694 between Shoreview and Arden Hills. Carla Holt sat down with a 23-year-old who was one of the first to jump into action and says it was a harrowing experience.
What began as a normal day in the neighborhood
I was on my way home from work.
turned into, for Edwin Galeno, a lesson
They kind of flew by me.
for both the road and life.
It hit a car first, and that's when it kind of bounced off the SUV, and the bounce kind of made it hit off the guardrail. At that point, it was doing a rollover, which kind of caught the car on fire.
But when tragedy strikes,
Holy cow, it happens so fast.
look for the helpers.
And I was like, I have to go help them.
With both EMT and law enforcement training, Edwin shifted into what he instinctively knew to do.
The car was still on fire, so I ran back while they were kicking the windshield to the girl and I was trying to, make sure she was still okay.
Edwin says every person played a role.
People were controlling traffic, people that helped me take out the fire with the fire extinguisher, the men that helped me with the glass, the women that helped me, comfort the girls. Like, everybody was doing something, so I definitely did not do this alone. We're all in this together, and that we're all human together.
A lesson Lieutenant Mike Lee with the Minnesota State Patrol also acknowledges.
It's a great sign of humanity.
Along with the reality behind the reason authorities believe one of the 3 people inside this car didn't survive the crash.
We just remind people to wear their seatbelt and wear it properly. This is a very tragic reminder of that.
Edwin knows he will live with the reminder.
For the parents of the girl that was lost, I am so sorry.
He's urging everyone to do the same.
To know that somebody's sister or daughter is just gone from a moment's instant, it must be really hard. And I'm really sorry.
That is a good man. Lieutenant Lee says nearly 95% of people wear seatbelts in Minnesota. Law enforcement wants us to reach 100%. Edwin, too. At 23 years old, he urges his peers to drive safely. He says he's so grateful for all the people who helped and wishes all the best to them, the crash survivors, and of course the family of the victim. Happening today, Democratic lawmakers in Texas could return to their home state. They've been out of the state of Texas to stop their Republican counterparts from passing a measure redrawing congressional maps that would give their party more seats in the upcoming midterm elections. Shortly after ending the first special session, Texas Governor Greg Abbott called another and will likely try to pass the congressional redrawing again. Meantime, California Governor Gavin Newsom is calling for a special election to pass a measure with its own new maps to offset changes in Texas. That California measure still needs approval from state lawmakers. If that happens, it would be on the ballot in November. Happening right now, a bipartisan group of attorneys general, including Keith Ellison, are calling on Instagram to make changes to its new location sharing feature. Instagram Map, introduced this month, allows people to share their location in real time with their followers. But the 37 attorneys general say the feature is especially dangerous for children and domestic violence survivors. In a letter, they called on Instagram to disable the feature for minors and share the risks with all adult users with an easy way to opt out of sharing their location. Instagram previously said the feature is set to off by default. The trend today in drinking is that there are a lot of people not doing it anymore. A new Gallup poll is reinforcing what we've been hearing from restaurants and bars, even concert venues for months. And today, Kent Erdahl breaks down the numbers and what appears to be driving this change.
Are you looking for anything special?
When Marigold Non-Alcoholic Bottle Shop opened in Minneapolis nearly 3 years ago, it was a niche business.
We were the only place in the state. We were the only place in the city. And liquor stores just didn't quite see the benefit to having non-alcoholic options.
But Josie Schumacher,
At that point, that was 3 years ago,
says other stores have caught on, expanding NA offerings to keep up with changing tastes.
we've seen definitely an increase in people not drinking, or people curious in decreasing the amount of alcohol they drink.
According to Gallup, which has tracked Americans' drinking behavior since 1939, a record low 54% of adults reported using alcohol last year, continuing a 3-year decline.
There are just a lot of health benefits to not drinking, and there's a lot more research coming out suggesting that drinking less or not drinking at all is beneficial.
That does appear to be playing a role. For the first time, a majority of Americans, 53%, say even drinking in moderation, 1 or 2 drinks a day, is bad for their health.
I'm glad that people are more aware of the health effects of alcohol consumption.
University of Minnesota professor Sylvia Belbo has long studied the link between alcohol consumption and cancers of the mouth, esophagus, and digestive tract.
Probably starting to be close to 20 years. A long time.
But she believes the perception shift now is thanks in part to the U.S. Surgeon General issuing an expansive order in January tying alcohol to several cancer risks.
The connection has been known for a long time, but we're still trying to really pinpoint what are the steps of this process that lead from exposure to cancer development. And I think that research needs to move forward in being able to really provide that more precise and quantitative information so that we can even be better and better informed in making our decisions.
Of course, it says natural flavors.
And where that information goes, tastes are likely to follow.
I think that just in general, having access to options has made it a lot easier to make different choices.
Another really interesting aspect of this poll is that the youngest adults, 18 to 34-year-olds, are driving this change. Just 50% of them reported drinking, while 66% said that moderate drinking is bad for their health. It's a lot higher than middle-aged and older adults. New today, a potential game changer for the upcoming flu season. You can now order an FDA-approved flu vaccine mist that you can take at your home. It's approved from people 2 to 49 years old. Once you order the mist and pick the date you would like the refrigerated package to arrive at your house. If you want to order a flu mist, head to flumist.com. Tomorrow, the Minnesota Renaissance Festival kicks off its 7-weekend run just 4 months after a fire destroyed several buildings on the property there. This morning, we got some tips if you plan to head there this year because it gets busy. On renaissancefest.com, there's options to buy advanced sale tickets at Quick Trip and Cub Foods. We found people on social media who say they snagged the 2-ticket, 2-turkey leg combo bundle at Costco, of course. As for getting there, the website has a list of park and ride bus stops, which operate from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Inside the gates, you'll notice that April fire took out several food vendors and artisan stands. Fair reps say they're working to replace those 6 buildings. Hang with us. More news and weather coming up after the break.